jacket. Her name is Whitney Caldwell. She's 23 years old, a recent graduate from Ohio State with a degree in graphic design. It's 7:42 p.m. on October 14th, and she's walking through the parking garage beneath her apartment building in Columbus. She's carrying 2 bags of groceries and scrolling through her phone with her free hand. Whitney moved into this building 6 weeks ago. The complex advertised 24-hour security and controlled building access. She felt safe here. Now, pay attention to the figure in the dark hoodie, 30 feet behind her, moving between the concrete pillars. His name is Abebe Tesfaye. He's 41 years old, originally from Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. He works night maintenance at a commercial office park 3 miles away. He has been following Whitney Caldwell for 19 days. Within 2 hours, Whitney's phone would be powered off and discarded in a dumpster behind a closed Family Dollar. Within 4 hours, she would be reported missing by her roommate. Within 6 hours, investigators would discover that the parking garage security cameras had been systematically disabled, spray painted over with black paint 2 weeks earlier. Management hadn't noticed or hadn't cared enough to fix them. This was not a random encounter. This was the culmination of weeks of surveillance, planning, and patient stalking. Whitney Caldwell grew up in Mason, Ohio, a comfortable suburb north of Cincinnati. She was the youngest of 3 children. Her older brothers both worked in finance. Whitney wanted something different. She wanted to create. Her Instagram portfolio showcased clean, minimalist designs, logos, branding packages, mock-ups for small businesses. She wasn't looking for fame. She was looking for clients, for a career, for independence. The apartment in Columbus was her first place without roommates from college. Studio apartment, 5th floor, northern exposure. She loved the light. She'd posted a photo of her desk setup on October 1st with the caption, "New space, new chapter." Whitney worked remotely for a marketing firm in Cleveland. Most days, she never left the apartment. When she did leave, it was usually for groceries, the gym, or coffee at the cafe 2 blocks away. She had a routine. Tuesdays and Fridays, she went to the gym at 6 p.m. Wednesdays, she picked up groceries at the Kroger on High Street around 7:30 p.m. Abebe Tesfaye knew her routine. Tesfaye had immigrated to the United States in 2008 on a diversity visa. He worked various maintenance and janitorial positions. He lived alone in a rental house in the Hilltop neighborhood. He had no criminal record, no history of violence, no red flags. But on his home computer, investigators would later find a folder containing 47 photographs of Whitney Caldwell. Photos taken from a distance, photos taken through windows, photos taken in parking lots, coffee shops, and grocery stores. The metadata showed the first photo was taken on September 26th, 16 days after Whitney moved into the building. Tesfaye had noticed her, and he had decided she belonged to him. Whitney's roommate, Jasmine Crawford, worked evening shifts as a nurse at Riverside Methodist Hospital. She usually got home around 11 p.m. On the night of October 14th, she arrived home at 10:53 p.m. The apartment door was unlocked. The lights were off. Whitney's keys, wallet, and laptop were on the kitchen counter. Her car was in its assigned spot in the garage, but Whitney was gone. Jasmine called her immediately. The call went straight to voicemail. She texted. No response. She checked Whitney's room. The bed was made. Nothing appeared disturbed. At 11:24 p.m., Jasmine called the Columbus Police Department to report Whitney missing. The responding officers took the report seriously. Young woman. Left behind all personal items. Phone off. No prior history of disappearing. By midnight, detectives were reviewing security footage. That's when they discovered the cameras in the parking garage had been disabled. Detective Angela Reyes led the investigation. She was 46 years old, 22 years with Columbus PD, and she specialized in missing persons cases. She had seen enough to know this was bad. The parking garage cameras had been spray painted over on September 29th, between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. Management had received a work order to clean or replace them. The work order was still pending. But the cameras on the building's exterior entrances were functional. At 7:44 p.m. on October 14th, They captured Whitney entering the building through the garage entrance. She was carrying grocery bags. At 7:51 p.m., a different camera captured a man in a dark hoodie entering the same garage entrance. He carried nothing. He walked with purpose. At 8:17 p.m., the same man exited through a side door that led to the alley. He was no longer alone. He was guiding a woman, Whitney Caldwell, by the arm. Her head was down. She appeared disoriented. At 8:19 p.m., a dark blue sedan pulled into the alley. The man helped Whitney into the back seat. Then he got into the driver's seat. The sedan's license plate was obscured by mud. Detective Reyes put out a bolo for the vehicle. She also issued a press release with Whitney's photo and a plea for information. By sunrise on October 15th, Whitney had been missing for 12 hours. Whitney's mother, Carol Caldwell, drove up from Mason the moment she heard. Carol was a high school English teacher. Organized, methodical, terrified. She knew Whitney. She knew her daughter didn't just leave. She knew something terrible had happened. Carol began calling hospitals, posting on social media, organizing search parties. She contacted local news stations. She made flyers. She did everything a mother does when her child vanishes. But deep down, Carol understood what the police weren't saying yet. This wasn't a runaway case. This was an abduction. The break came from Whitney's phone records. Her phone had been powered off at 8:34 p.m. on October 14th. The last ping came from a cell tower near the intersection of Sullivan Avenue and Hague Avenue, the Hilltop neighborhood, 3 miles west of her apartment. Detectives canvassed the area. They checked dumpsters, abandoned buildings, and vacant lots. On October 16th, a sanitation worker found Whitney's phone in a dumpster behind a closed Family Dollar on Sullivan Avenue. The SIM card had been removed. The phone had been wiped, but the phone itself was evidence. Forensic analysts lifted a partial fingerprint from the phone's case. The print belonged to Abebe Tesfaye. Tesfaye was in the system, not for any crime, but because he had applied for permanent residency and had been fingerprinted as part of that process. Detectives ran his name. They found his address. They found his employment records. They found his vehicle registration, a dark blue 2011 Honda Accord. On October 17th, at 6:15 a.m., a tactical unit surrounded Tesfaye's rental house on Westgate Avenue. He was arrested without incident. The interrogation began at 7:30 a.m. Detective Reyes and her partner, Detective Marcus Liu, sat across from Tesfaye in a windowless room at the Columbus Police Department headquarters. Tesfaye said nothing. He stared at the table. His lawyer, a public defender named Paul Greenberg, advised him not to answer any questions. They showed him the surveillance footage, the grocery store, the parking garage entrance, the alley, the sedan. Tesfaye said nothing. They showed him the phone records, the cell tower pings, the fingerprint match. Tesfaye said nothing. They told him they had a warrant to search his house. Tesfaye looked up. For the first time, there was fear in his eyes. The search team entered Tesfaye's house at 9 a.m. The house was small, 2 bedrooms, dated linoleum floors, minimal furniture. It smelled of old coffee and mildew. In the living room, they found a desktop computer. In the basement, they found a makeshift sleeping area, a mattress on the floor, a space heater, and a chain bolted to the concrete wall. Whitney Caldwell was not there. But in the bedroom, they found her purse, her driver's license, her debit card, her apartment keys, and in the closet, they found a duffel bag containing duct tape, zip ties, a box cutter, and 3 empty bottles of prescription sedatives. On the computer, they found the photos, 47 images of Whitney, and beneath them, another folder. This one contained 63 images of a different woman, a woman investigators would later identify as Megan Cho, a 25-year-old dental hygienist who lived in Tesfaye's neighborhood. Megan Cho had not been reported missing, but when detectives contacted her, they learned she had moved out of state 6 months earlier, specifically to get away from a man she believed had been following her. She identified Abebe Tesfaye from a photo array. She said he used to watch her from his car. He used to show up at places she went. He had never approached her directly. but she had felt hunted. She had left Ohio because of him. Detective Reyes returned to the interrogation room at 2 p.m. She showed Tesfaye the evidence, the photos, the duffel bag, Whitney's belongings. She asked one question: "Where is Whitney Caldwell?" Tesfaye conferred with his lawyer. Then, through Greenberg, he made an offer. He would reveal Whitney's location in exchange for considerations in sentencing. Reyes didn't have the authority to make that deal. She called the Franklin County Prosecutor's Office. Assistant Prosecutor David Hammond arrived within the hour. The negotiation took 40 minutes. At 3:17 p.m., Abebe Tesfaye provided an address. The address was a storage unit facility on the east side of Columbus, near the airport, Unit 287. At 4:05 p.m., tactical units breached the unit. Inside, they found Whitney Caldwell. She was alive. She was handcuffed to a metal shelving unit. She was dehydrated, disoriented, and terrified. But she was alive. Paramedics transported her to Ohio State University Wexner Medical Center. She was treated for dehydration, minor lacerations, and shock. Physically, she would recover. Psychologically, the damage was profound. Whitney told investigators that Tesfaye had approached her in the parking garage while she was loading groceries into her car. He had sprayed something in her face, later identified as a homemade chloroform mixture. She lost consciousness. When she woke up, she was in his house, in the basement, chained to the wall. Tesfaye told her he had been watching her. He told her she was beautiful. He told her he wanted to take care of her. Whitney didn't scream. She didn't fight. She was strategic. She told him she understood. She told him she wouldn't run. She convinced him she could be trusted. After 2 days, he moved her to the storage unit. He said it was temporary. He said he was going to take her somewhere permanent. Somewhere they could start over. Whitney knew what that meant. She knew she was running out of time. She had been in that storage unit for less than 8 hours when police found her. Abebe Tesfaye was charged with kidnapping, aggravated abduction, felonious assault, and stalking. Additional charges were added after forensic analysis of his computer revealed evidence of cyber stalking and identity theft. He had created fake social media profiles to monitor Whitney and at least 3 other women. The trial began on April 8, 2024. The defense argued diminished capacity. Tesfaye's attorney presented evidence of childhood trauma in Ethiopia, social isolation in the United States, and untreated mental health issues. A psychologist testified that Tesfaye exhibited signs of erotomania, a delusional belief that Whitney was in love with him. The prosecution acknowledged Tesfaye's background, but emphasized the calculated nature of his actions. He had disabled security cameras. He had stockpiled supplies. He had stalked multiple women over several years. Assistant Prosecutor Hammond was direct in his closing argument. Trauma may explain behavior. It does not justify it. The jury deliberated for 9 hours. On April 22, 2024, Abebe Tesfaye was found guilty on all counts. He was sentenced to 38 years in prison without the possibility of parole. Whitney Caldwell did not attend the sentencing. Her mother read a statement on her behalf. The statement was brief. Whitney described the fear of not knowing if she would survive. She described the violation of having been watched without her knowledge. She described the long process of reclaiming her sense of safety. She ended with a single sentence: "I survived because I refused to give up." Whitney moved out of Columbus in May 2024. She now lives in a different state, in a location she has chosen not to disclose. She continues to work as a graphic designer. She continues to create. She also works with advocacy groups focused on stalking prevention and apartment security reform. She has pushed for legislation requiring residential buildings to maintain functional security systems and to notify tenants immediately when those systems fail. In Ohio, a bill known as Whitney's Law was introduced in the state legislature in early 2025. It would mandate quarterly security audits for residential buildings and impose fines for non-compliance. The bill is still pending. Carol Caldwell keeps her daughter's apartment keys in a drawer in her kitchen. She has no reason to keep them. The apartment is long gone, but she keeps them anyway. They are a reminder that her daughter came home. A reminder that not every story ends in loss. Whitney Caldwell survived. That's what matters most.